Hi, Joy. Welcome to the Sioux Film Festival online edition. Um, I'm so glad that you could come and attend virtually this year with us, and maybe hopefully next year we can do more in person workshops. Last year we did these online, and I'm glad that we can kind of still continue sort of the hybrid model for this year. Um, you're all the way in Vancouver, so that's crazy. um, it must be like with COVID, it must be up and down with like filming, not filming, and projects happening, projects not happening. And Joy is a director in Vancouver, but you're not originally from there, right? You've kind of made your way eventually to Vancouver.
Yeah, that's right. And yeah, I just want to say that thank you so much for having me on for the Sioux Film Festival. And exactly next year, I hope to be there in person and we can partay and I can meet everybody in person. Um, yeah, so I'm super excited to be here. And you are right. I did not grow up in Vancouver. I grew up in Prince George, BC, which is um, northern British Columbia.
Um, as a filmmaker growing up in northern BC, it must have been kind of tough, right? Like, I know Trish, she's from the Sioux originally, and it was like tough for her growing up in the Sioux to like try and be a filmmaker. What was that like for you as an Indigenous filmmaker in the North?
It was pretty much non-existent. Um, and I think, also I know times have changed, so it was a bit of a different time as well. But really there was no opportunities other than me just using my camera or my dad's camera. um, walking around filming stuff. But my dad really encouraged me, and we would often take trips to Vancouver or to Los Angeles. And he would just always instill in me that I didn't have to, that it was okay for me to leave Prince George and to pursue, my dreams and stuff. So I
That's
feel,
cool.
yeah, I just feel like that was very helpful.
Yeah. What kind of camera did he have? Do you remember the exact camera?
Oh my God. I know he had like a Canon. He had like a few cameras for me. So we had like this really old Panasonic, and I don't remember the names, like the model numbers, I should say. But one was and one was Kodak. So we had a Kodak, a Canon, and a Panasonic.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I say that because I remember finding this old camera of my grandfather's, and I was so fascinated by it as a child, and I would play with it. And I feel like that's something that a lot of filmmakers, we didn't know at the time,
Yeah.
but it was an actual job that we could do one day. But there's something about that like fascination when you're small and discovering cameras and then being talked out of it and realizing one day, well, even though some people talked me out of it, I can actually go about this path. And there's a reason why I was attracted to that as a child.
I remember going to my neighbors and playing like news weather girl.
Oh.
Like 3-year-old girl, like the 3-year-old daughter neighbor. I'd like babysit her, and then we would like do like, because they had a camcorder, my family didn't. We would do like tape to tape edits. I would like literally edit within the camera and the VCR.
Wow,
like,
that is a skill.
Videos.
It all makes sense now.
It does, Rebecca. I did not have that skill. I would just like, I had a lot of Barbies, so I would like set up my Barbies in like different scenes and like different like attire, like so costuming and stuff. And like I would accessorize them, and like I wouldn't play with them like as dolls, but I would just always have different scenes. And like when my parents asked me what I was doing, I would just like I would have like this big story. you know, and I would like take pictures, and if
You are
someone,
doing geography with Barbies at like
yeah, and like if someone moved, like, you know, like the Barbies are like the way they were set, you know, then I would get like very annoyed because I'd be like, that's my like, you know, I'm like that's don't do that, like that's don't mess around with my, you know, I didn't know it was a set.
Yeah, don't mess with my actors. They are blocking, they're in position, they were on their marks. The focus is going to be out of control.
That's so cute.
Yeah, so my dad knew that I had something, so so he would just talk to me in a way that I would that I understood, and just, you know, tell me that it was okay.
That's cool. And then when did you decide to make the move to Vancouver?
I wanted to leave Prince George like so badly. Anybody from Prince George watching, I'm sorry, but I'm also not sorry. So I did take a little bit of a detour because I got into, I did like a musical theater and acting and singing and stuff. And because Prince George was so small and like there was no school there, so I was got, you know, like I had a different acting coach, I had a different teaching or like a singing coach, and, you know, dancing and stuff like that. And then you know, my dad would, another reason why we go to like LA or like Vancouver is during the summer I could take like different like camps and stuff. And so yeah, so I was involved in, you know, musical theater and stuff. And so I got into musical theater school in Edmonton, so I stayed there for a little while, and I really just could not stand the cold anymore. So I left, and I was like, I always wanted to be in Vancouver anyways because it was familiar to me because my dad had, you know, and I came here so many times. So I was like, yeah, I just need to be in Vancouver. So I just was like, I'm living in Vancouver. So I came here.
Cool. It must be a pretty interesting and kind of weird time right now with like the sort of acknowledgement of Indigenous folks and Indigenous culture, and like somewhat, I would say the industry is trying to show some reconciliation. I'm not saying the whole country is, but like the industry right now is trying to in Canada. With a lot of the like, sort of BIPOC movements and workshops and resources being given to folks of the BIPOC community. How do you feel about sort of like that upright, like sort of like community building in the last like year during the pandemic? And I know you've attended some workshops, and so that's one question. And then the other question would be like, what would you sort of like tell emerging directors about sort of these workshops that you've experienced, maybe, if you could?
Okay, sure. So I think for me, it's kind of like, well, it's about time because I've been in this industry and for so long. And honestly, like I got shut down or laughed at, you know, like in acting, especially, like there just wasn't space, or, you know, I couldn't do this character because, you know, I had casting directors say, you can't play that because you're Indigenous. And so I was like, I didn't want to act anymore. And so, you know, like I stopped, but it's good to see that there is an acknowledgement because so many people have been fighting for such a long time for us. And so I think it's good to have that, you know, that people are acknowledging us and that we do have stories to tell, but we also have a right to tell our stories our own way. Like it's just, you know, and it's just people understanding that, I guess you could say like political correctness, you know, that it's not okay for someone else to tell an Indigenous story because they don't have that understanding or they haven't lived that experience. So they don't have a right to tell like an Indigenous story. It's our stories and they belong to us. So I feel like really good, like in that aspect about that change. And well, just acknowledging like, hey, we've been here for a really long time. And you know, you can hire us, like we are educated. And some of us are like overtrained and, you know, we know what we're doing. And so it's just kind of good to, I'm getting a lot of phone calls, you know, people ask me what I think of, you know, this Indigenous like person, if they know that I've worked with them and stuff like that. So it's just good to have other people acknowledge that, you know, these people can do a job like correctly on set, you know, like behind the film and on screen. So I like that. Yeah. And I guess like for the workshops and programs, this last year I've definitely been through a lot. And I think that like, so I've this past year I've got into Women in the Director's Chair, the career advancement module, which I'm so thankful for because then that's how I got to meet you and now we're working together. You know, so that's been like a huge bonus. I also got into the E20 Real World program and, you know, just building like connections and meeting people and also having like industry professionals acknowledge us. And, you know, I got into, I can announce it now because the press release just dropped. I also got into Women in the Director's Chair Story and Leadership, which I'm working on now. I got into the CSC Netflix Accelerator program for my feature film, and the Canadian Academy of Film and TV Directors Program for Women. So definitely, I feel extremely grateful, but also understand that like you know, I apply for so many things and I don't get all of them all the time. It's a lot of work. And it's also been years of building up, you know, like my career and developing, you know, stuff. Like I don't just like, you know, when you apply, obviously just continue to apply for everything that you can and take advantage of the opportunities that are available. And it's hard sometimes not to get discouraged, like when you keep hearing like a no, but there's going to be one day where you will hear a yes. And, you know, just keep going, like just keep applying for things. And, but also, yeah, I just want to reiterate, like, just do understand that, you know, I worked really hard for all of this and, you know, and it's taken years. Like it didn't just happen overnight. Like I wasn't just like, oh yeah, I'm going to apply. And then the next day I got it. Like it literally took years to develop, you know, the skill sets and everything. So,
yeah. And they always say it takes 15 years to see someone become an overnight success because we see the success, but we don't see all the moments that someone spent for years, you know, dealing with obstacles and getting up and keep going with their stories or with their vision or with their projects and working away every day at it. So
yeah,
huge congrats. And, you know, you've worked your butt off for years. So that's really awesome to see, you know, to see it, to see you getting yeses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, I think part of that too is like, I think sometimes up and coming directors don't know where to start.
Yeah.
I think your starting point story is pretty good too. Like, could you tell us a little bit about sort of the Hey Cousin trajectory, where it is right now, how it started and where you're at now?
Sure. So, like I've always wanted to direct, and everything is just kind of like, instinctively inside me. And I love working with actors. Like that's something, that I like think about constantly. And and I'm not afraid to work with actors and stuff. So when Tell a Story Hive had their first ever Indigenous their first ever Indigenous Story Hive. And so I applied for it with Hey Cousin. And, thankfully I was selected. And, honestly, that has been, I'm sorry, I might get emotional. So Hey Cousin has been like so amazing for me, and just like the people that I have met. And like when I filmed Hey Cousin, that was my proof of concept. So to anybody who might be listening that might be new, whatever, you can take that proof of concept and you can build upon that. So when you take it to like networks, or you're trying to find producers and stuff, that's like a calling card, I guess you could say, for like your project. So I had that. And I had someone on my set, Evan Adams. And anybody who's Indigenous knows, and non-Indigenous, I mean, like, Evan Adams is very well loved. And he's a friend of mine, and we were going for coffee, and he's like, "Oh, what are you up to?" And I said, "Oh my God, like I'm going to be filming this this series, and it's going to be called Hey Cousin," and da-da. And I told him, and like he was like drinking his coffee, and he stopped, and he's like, "Okay," he's like, "I didn't hear anything about this, so I'm on it, right?" And it was like, oh, like I didn't think, like, like he's like, he was so offended, playfully. And I'm like, "Do you want to be on it?" He's like, "Well, yeah." And I'm like, "Okay, you can come on the thing, I'll write you in, but you have to play yourself." Like that's the whole, like that's because that'll be funny. And he's like, "Love it." So so I had Evan on there. And so Evan, Micah, and Dusty had scenes together, and they were a lot of fun, but they're also brats. And everybody on set had a lot of fun that day. And every day, before filming, I either had someone come and do like a smudge, or like drumming and singing. And so my cast was all Indigenous, but my crew was a mix. And I also had a lot of women. And so one of my actors was from LA, and she said to me afterwards, she said, "I am so shocked that there's so many women on set, like behind the scenes. You have women like working camera, and they're like Indigenous." And she's like, "This is so cool." And so I just didn't think anything of it, because I was so excited, and I'm like, "This is my set." And I told my producers, like, "This is, what I want." And, so like, I didn't think anything of it. I was like, "I want women." Obviously I had some like men on there, but it was just like exciting for me to be like, I want to hire women, and I want to hire Indigenous women, and I want to have BIPOC women. And so that was like really exciting for me. And after filming, I had some of the non-Indigenous crew members approach me afterwards and say how much they loved working on Hey Cousin. And they said they'd never been on a set like that before. And these are like seasoned dudes. So it made me feel really good. And they said, like, you know, how they said they felt like they were part of the family, how they said we kind of had this joke about, like, because we're filming cousins, that everybody was cousins. That was kind of like a joke, but one of the guys, you know, he's like, I literally felt like, you know, like everybody was my cousin. He's like, thank you for that. And he said, I'd never been on a set before where there was so many people of color.
Wow.
And I just wasn't expecting to hear that. And also he said, you know, he said, I never, he's like, I never had a film set like open up with like drumming and singing before. And he said, and that really changed me. And he's like, I just want to thank you for that. And I had, you know, a couple of other people like tell me how much it changed them. So, and just like filming Hey Cousin, like, you know, it still shows like on YouTube, and I've had people message me from like Ireland and say, hey, I just watched Hey Cousin, and I just want you to know that I reached out to my own cousin.
Aw.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, you know, I just never thought that it would like reach, you know, kind of like that far. And when I had the premiere, my first Canadian premiere was at, sorry, my first Canadian premiere was at Imaginative.
Oh, wow.
So that was like, that meant like so much to me, because it's like, you know, I know there's lots of, you know, film festivals out there and everything, but to have Hey Cousin show at Imaginative was like really special for me. And I did like a creator talk afterwards. And honestly, I was like, oh my God, like nobody's gonna come. But it was like, you know, the Sunday morning and like Saturday night, there's like, you know, this big thing, you know, big dance and stuff. So I was like, nobody's gonna be at my talk Sunday morning. But there was actually like a lot of people, and people were like excited to talk to me about Hey Cousin. So like I still get kind of blown away by that sometimes. And then I had my US premiere at the TCL Chinese Theater in Hollywood. And that was the theater that my dad and I used to go to. So
That's
Wow. Full circle.
yeah, so that was like really cool. And, you know, like I just worked hard at like pitching it and putting stuff together. And, you know, now it is in development with Andrew Carr, who's from like Corner Gas and Hiccups. And I mean, this dude is like, you know, he's so well versed in like comedy, like, you know, and he's so easy to work with, and he never tries to like take over. I mean, with all of his experience, you know, like when we're in the writer's room, he never tries to, you know, like take over or anything. Like he just really, I'm learning so much from him in comedy, and Rebecca can speak to this because she's one of my producers on Hey Cousin. So, you know, it's kind of like, you know, it didn't happen overnight. Again, like it took a long time, you know, me out there taking the proof of concept and hustling and talking to people and, you know, showing it. And, you know, there's a couple of things that we can't talk about yet, hopefully soon. But you know, it's a grind. But like I would just say to anyone, you know, if you have a project that you just love and you really believe in and stuff, find the right people, you know, to help you, because it literally takes a village. It doesn't happen overnight. And sometimes, you know, you might come across like obstacles and whatever, but just push through them. And I promise, like on the other side, once you push through, you'll feel better, and just continue to like find people that that you like to work with, and you know, who have the same vision as you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, that's important.
That's so key.
Yes.
And just the way you said your set was such a positive environment for so many people. Anyone who works in film, or even if you don't work in film, but you work in any sort of space with other people, you know that difference between, there's sometimes you just feel magic with certain people, and you just find your team, and it's such an amazing experience. And that's what we're here for. We're in this business because we want those experiences with a great team. And I think a lot of people have experienced the other side of that, where it's, you know, a toxic environment, and
Yeah.
it's, you know, when it's your vision and your creation, and you have a story you want to tell, it's so important to tell it with the right people and the right team. And yeah, that's really special when you find that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I guess I would just say to like always remember that like when you create something, it's your project, and you know, protect it. And I like, and I can't stress enough, I'll say it like just one more time, you know, just find the right people. They're out there. You know, you might find someone who's really nice, and you know, but maybe they're just not the right fit for the project, you know, but just keep you know, just keep at it.
With your experience when you were shooting Hey Cousin, is there sort of advice you would have for filmmakers who are maybe not Indigenous but want to work with Indigenous folks? I know Imaginative has their pathways and guidelines for working with Indigenous stories and Indigenous folks, but from your perspective, is there sort of not necessarily tips, but ways that people who are not Indigenous can work with Indigenous folks? Like, say, for example, they want to tell a story or that inspires them, but maybe they're not from that Indigenous group, or they, you know, want to support an Indigenous filmmaker. What do you think someone who's non-Indigenous could do to work with somebody like you, for example?
So I've had people like, you know, I've from the extremes, and maybe what not to do. I will start off with that. I have had, you know, someone call me and say, hey, I have like this great Indigenous story that I want to tell, and I want this and I want that. And, you know, and everything was about them and what they wanted, and they weren't Indigenous. And so I sat and listened to it for, you know, for a bit, because I was kind of curious to see how they were going to close it up and like, you know, like present it to me and what they wanted from me, because they knew so much already. And so, yeah, but it wasn't, they just said, you know, how like, and I'd like you to help me. And I'm like, well, you'd like me to help you how? Because you seem to know everything already. And you know, and then I just said, you know, this isn't obviously going to work, because I don't want to work with someone who knows everything. And second, you don't know everything because you're not Indigenous and it's not your story.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
but like when approaching Indigenous people, or like, or me personally, then I had someone respectfully ask me if I would be willing to work and I signed an NDA, so I can't say which series it is, but they asked me to work on the series, and they said, I have an Indigenous component, and this is the research that I have done, and this is the person that I have on board, and I'm wondering if you would like to come on board and do X, Y, and Z. And I said, well, I'd like to see the research, and I don't know this other person who's Indigenous, but I'd like to do some research and like follow up before I give you my answer. And also, talked it over with my agent, and everything was like, legit. So, if you want to work with Indigenous people, like, please just be respectful, and please be respectful of our culture, but also understand that, like, we're many nations. I'm from Northern BC, and I can't speak about, Indigenous from like Ontario or Montreal, or even like, Saskatchewan, because we're all different. We don't all speak the same language. So that's like another misconception that a lot of people have. I don't understand, a lot of other different languages. We all have different languages, and we all have different dialects. And so just because I'm Indigenous does not mean that I understand some of the, like the cultures that I just said, like in Saskatchewan or Manitoba or Ontario or whatever. I understand where I'm from, and I understand that culture. And so that's what I can speak to, but I can't speak to I can't speak about like another nation. And so just like understand that as well.
I think that's really important for folks to understand who are not indigenous, or maybe those who are Indigenous and haven't grown up on like as much with their culture. I think that gets confused a lot. Like I think majority of folks understand sort of the different cultures, like, but not quite the Indigenous culture and the range and the difference between each of the Indigenous cultures. So that's an important one, I think.
Yeah, like some of my friends, who are Indigenous, we do have cousin jokes, because that's like kind of a norm. We generally have a lot of cousins, which is why like I wanted to create like, hey cousin, because there's like how we tease one another and how we tease our cousins and whatever. So that's like something that I can I can talk about with other natives, because that's like a common thing, is we generally have a lot of cousins. So that's why I created that.
Right. Yeah, it makes sense, I think. Do you want to talk a little bit about maybe your sort of directing style and how you direct? Because I know me directing versus Trish directing and you directing, we have like completely kind of different styles, I think. Yeah. And I think it'd be interesting to hear your style, because I know you didn't, not that you didn't go to school for it, but you're more like independently trained, I would say, I guess. And then you have that training from musical theater versus someone who went to like film school and has like more of a technical training, So that I'm just curious, because I know you're more of like an actor director, right?
Yeah, like that you said you're not afraid of actors, because that's actually a big fear for a lot of directors out there, or emerging directors, is being that assertive person, but understanding and assertive, and not being intimidated by actors. You know, every actor is different, so you're really working with so many different personalities and have to learn the style of that actor and how they respond well to your direction. And some actors, you know, they've been in 100 things and they're so experienced, so it can be really intimidating for directors. So I liked when you said that. I'm like, oh yeah, I can relate to that, being afraid of actors. Whereas you said, yeah, but I get that that is definitely a huge thing, to not be afraid of the actors and the interaction with the actors, and to be an actor's actor, and, you know, not just focus on the technical, but really work with each actor individually and know how they work. I know when I'm acting, I feel like that's such a dream, to work with with directors who understand performing and have been on that side of the camera or on a stage, and, you know, respect performers.
Mm-hmm. So I will start off by saying, yeah, like I am not afraid when it comes to set, and when there's like, I am afraid of other things though. So please, like when you hear this, like don't think, oh my God, she's not afraid of it. I am, because I'm human. But so when I was actually just talking about this week, because I was doing like some callbacks, and I actually had to do some directing yesterday and today. So a lot of that is like fresh in my mind for me. So when I walk onto a set, it's my set. I own that set.
Mm-hmm.
And so the actors, they're my responsibility. That's how I look at it. I'm also not afraid of them because, because they're going to be speaking like life into the script that I just created. Mm-hmm. So I respect them. I want the best out of them. So I just kind of have like that instinct, you know, like when I'm talking with them or whatever, that I am able to pull stuff out of them. I am able to see something, like if I'm even like in on audition, like when I see somebody, I'm like, that person has something, and maybe I'll spend just a little bit more time with someone if they're struggling. If on set, you know, there was a time where one of the girls, she was just having a little bit of problem, and I could tell, you know, I didn't want her, I could tell she was a little bit uncomfortable. I don't want my actors to be like uncomfortable. So I took her into like another room with another actor, and we just worked on it. She was able to pick it up like very quickly. And so I wouldn't say like I'm not, you know, catering to my actors, but I will take care of them. They're my responsibility. And also, you know, if I take care of them, they're going to give me the best performance, because when you're working with your actors, you're building trust. I want my actors to trust me. So I want, even this morning before I was directing some of my actors, I sent them an email. My subject line was, let's have some fun and kick ass. And, you know, I said, I know that we are, you know, working on a difficult scene today, you know, but I believe in you, and, you know, thank you for being here today. And, you know, I said, I look forward to seeing you later, and please don't be afraid to ask me any questions, you know, because I want them to have, when they come to set, I want them to have confidence.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I want to tell them that, you know what, it's okay, ask me questions, because sometimes actors like are afraid of the directors, and they're like, I don't want to ask any questions, especially if like some actors know, they're like, oh my God, if I ask a question, they're going to fire me, or they're going to tell me to get off like set or whatever. Not with me. It's just like, you know what, like ask the question. you know, and like, and don't be afraid, you know, and even still I had said that, and one of them was like, is it okay if I ask a question? I'm like, yes, ask me the question, you know, because it just makes it just makes it strong, like it'll make the scene stronger. And it's also building that relationship with them, like, yes, ask me that question so we can so you can understand where I'm coming from, I can understand where you're coming from.
Yes. And if there's any sort of uncertainty, I feel like it reads on camera. So like you said, it's better for the scene, better for everyone to just get that clarity, because then it clicks and, you know, you're more confident in understanding what's going on. Because if you're ever confused as to something that's happening or feel unsure about something, it'll definitely, you know, come through. So
Yeah,
it sounds like such a welcoming set. I hope I get to work with you one day at some point in some regard, because we have not, and it's just so refreshing to hear from a female director about how you treat others, because, you know, I'm sure everyone here has been on the receiving end of some, you know, not so great sets or treatment in a male-dominated industry. So it's so refreshing to hear about how you treat your set and the example that you set, because it does trickle down to the whole team when there's, you know, how the director's treating others.
Yeah. And one thing that I'll just back up just a little bit is when I was on set for like Hey Cousin, every day I made a point of going, I didn't care how flippin' tired I was, I made a point of going around and thanking every person, like cast and crew and my actors, you know, whenever they wrapped early, you know, like if I could let them go early, I walk them to their car. You know, just it's just like those little personal touches, those little personal things. And like even today, like you know, one of my actors, she had like a really hard scene. Like I put her through it today. You know, like there was a scene where she had to be like angry and like, you know, really emotional, and it was like a emotional roller coaster for her. And you know, when we had to switch and go to the other scene, I asked her, I said, are you okay, do you need like a few minutes? You know, we can hang back, it's fine, you know. And I always try to let them know it's okay.
Yeah.
You know, because it is okay. Like I don't want to, even though like I'm very time conscious, like I also I don't want to rush an actor, especially when we've done like a really emotional scene. Like you need to take a few minutes and just like, I want to make sure that they are okay. And even afterwards, like after we were done, you know, I checked in with her and I said, hey, I said, we did a lot today. And I said, no, it was really tough subject and I want to make sure you're okay. And she was like, wow. She was like, yeah, I am. Thank you for checking, you know. But yeah, like it's just those little personal touches that can just make a difference in someone's life.
For sure. Do you have any questions?
So you're doing so much, what is next that you can talk about, or where can, as you mentioned, people can find Hey Cousin on YouTube still? Where can people kind of follow your career and see your work, see what you're up to, follow and see what's next, because there's a lot coming.
I know. I know, and I can't say like some of them yet, and it's like it's hard. But so I have been a little bit bad on social media lately just because I've been so busy, but I promise that will change. So I am on Twitter at I Should Read, and I'm on Facebook for Joy Haskell. Instagram is Hey Cousin, and I promise I will start putting stuff up for that. Yeah, and I will start a website where people can follow my projects and stuff, because I'll have to do that very soon. So yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, we're on the Twitter, and I feel like that's on the Twitter.
On the Twitter.
With 180, I just got a personal account, and I feel like that's a really great place to see what, I feel like there are so many writers and creators on Twitter. That's a great place to just get a little blurb of what everyone's up to, and to reach out to others and connect. I feel like that's been a good space.
I'm bad. You're better at social media than I am. I'm really bad.
It is time consuming though. It's very time consuming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for taking this evening to chat with us and give us some perspective and insight. And
yes, we very much appreciate it, and hope that you'll be back
in person next year.
Yes. And that we can make this a yearly thing with the Sioux Film Festival.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you guys are so kicking ass, seriously, like, and everything. And honestly, like, I'm proud to know you guys and what you guys are doing, you know, for the film community, where you guys live, and also just like being inspirational for other women and everything. So, you know, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Aww.
On behalf of the filmmakers, I know they very much appreciate it too. The Northern Ontario community is very much, you know, a family and very supportive of one another. And there weren't film opportunities at all here when I grew up here. So it's great to see everyone, you know, creating, and I know they appreciate the conversation and hearing from others in the business who have, you know, accomplished a lot and been around for a long time, and like you said, been working away for years at your accomplishments. So on behalf of them, we know they're very appreciative as well. Yay filmmaking.